Divine wisdom uncovered every closed door is a miraculous path to a greater journey awaiting. Margaret stood by her window, a soft light glowing from the candles lining her sill. The air, heavy with the scent of blooming lavender, seemed to vibrate with something extraordinary. Outside, her quaint village nestled beneath smoothly rolling hills hummed with life. Yet inside her heart raged a tempest, an uncertainty that threatened to awaken dark fears. Her son, Daniel, lay in his bed, where shadows danced ominously against the walls. A boy, once filled with laughter, now dimmed into silence by a perplexing illness that no physician could unravel. The villagers whispered prayers for him, their voices merging like a symphony of hope rising to the heavens. "Saint Jude, patron of lost causes," they called out fervently, believing that as they knocked upon heaven's door, the divine would respond. But for Margaret, faith now felt like trembling ice beneath her feet, cracking with every search for earthly solutions that fell flat. The beautiful simplicity of her anchor, her weekly devotion at the church, now felt overshadowed, dangling precariously between faith and despair. One night, as Margaret knelt beside her bed, soft tears wetting the prayer book worn by generations, she found herself engulfed in darkness, praying for a miracle. Her words became a torrent, spiraling up into the silence of the room. In that moment, she felt a sudden warmth wrap around her, a divine whisper stirring in the depths of her spirit. "Surrender," it beckoned, filling her with a peace that transcended her present heartache. Trust in the journey ahead. In that dimly lit room, she surrendered. The weight she'd been carrying, the relentless search for control, melted away, giving rise to an unyielding flame of faith. This radical embrace of trust echoed through her village like the first light of dawn breaking through the night. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. A few days later, the church filled with an energy unlike anything Margaret had ever felt. Candles flickered in soft cadence to the murmurs of devotion. As the congregation joined hands, the air thickened with purpose. An elder stepped forward, his voice resonating with the authority of deep years. "The Lord has spoken. A miracle is upon us," he declared, his words igniting a fervor through the village. Gasps echoed as the weight of his proclamation settled over them all, electrifying the atmosphere. Hope hung palpably in the air. Margaret felt the thundering of her heart, each thump mingling with fervent prayers lifted towards the heavens. She was the center, the embodiment of faith's hopeful expectations. Would she witness the promise unfold? The villagers cast glances of awe toward one another, their thoughts wrestling with the tantalizing possibility of what might come next amidst their newfound fervor. Would they all be witnesses to a miracle? And yet, in those sacred moments, the tantalizing whispers of doubt and belief danced at the edge of faith. As the prayer continued, Margaret grasped the strength of the community around her, feeling their collective hopes and fears pressing forward. The joy, the uncertainty, it all melded together, drawing them closer to the divine. What awaited on this path of faith was yet to be revealed, and the air crackled with the unspoken questions that bound their hearts together. Would heaven open its gates, revealing the miraculous beyond? The days that followed were a tapestry of hope and anticipation. Each morning, Margaret rose to the sound of chirping birds and the warm glow of sunlight pouring into her room. She felt different. Her heart pulsed with an unyielding conviction that something significant was about to happen. The miracles the elder spoke of filled the air thick with expectation, as Margaret ventured daily to the church, a spiritual pilgrimage of sorts. As the villagers gathered, they whispered of wonders, miraculous healings, dreams fulfilled, and blessings overflowing. Joy sparkled in their eyes, though a hint of apprehension lurked in the shadows. Would they be worthy of such grace? Yet, in those moments of fellowship, Margaret found herself buoyed by their faith. Each testimony she heard seemed to penetrate her heart, igniting an unshakable optimism within her. One evening, as twilight descended, Margaret stood in the center of the village square. A hymn floated through the air, rising and falling like a gentle breeze. She closed her eyes, surrendering herself to the melodic waves that enveloped her. The notes mingled with the distant sound of laughter and clinking glasses from neighboring homes. All around her, life was vibrant, yet her heart remained fixed on Daniel. She pictured him, his innocent smile, and the way he used to bound through the fields, arms wide open as if embracing the very essence of life. Those precious memories filled her with warmth even amid her worries. But would this journey of faith draw him back to her? Emboldened, Margaret lifted her voice within the throng of worshippers. "Lord, I trust in your goodness. I trust that you will heal my boy." Her words poured forth, saturated with raw emotion, crafting a bridge between her desperation and the divine. As the last notes of the song faded into the evening sky, a peaceful hush settled upon the crowd. Then it happened. A sudden stillness enveloped them, as if time stood still, and they waited breathlessly for what the heavens might unfold. Just then, a rustling from behind the small chapel caught their attention. The elders exchanged curious glances. And Margaret felt her heart race. Out stepped a figure cloaked in soft silver light, an otherworldly presence sparkling with divine beauty. An elder whispered, "My friends, could this be the promise we have awaited?" The villagers gasped as if inhaling the very breath of heaven itself. The figure raised a hand, a gesture of assurance. "Fear not, faithful ones. Your prayers resonate in the heart of heaven. Miracle and renewal are at hand." All the words and proclamations hung in the air, radiant with hope. Yet, beneath the surface, a whisper of doubts stirred in Margaret's heart. Was this truly the promise of healing, not just for Daniel, but for the entire village? Questions danced within her mind. Would she grasp the divine message clearly? Would the community be ready to embrace the transformation that lay on the horizon? As this celestial being began to speak incomprehensible truths, Margaret felt the contours of her reality shifting. The very fabric of her faith began to weave into something she had never imagined. And in that pivotal moment, the congregation shuddered with collective wonder. What new road lay before them? What fate awaited their beloved Daniel? The air crackled with divine possibility, suspending the moment in an electric anticipation. As Margaret gazed into the glowing figure's eyes, she was filled with a profound sense of connection. What awaited on the precipice of this newfound revelation? Would they step into the light of promise, or retreat into the shadows of uncertainty? The stage was set for the miraculous. The luminous figure stood before them, emanating an overwhelming presence that bathed the square in soft light. Voices hushed, breaths held. The air grew thick with wonder and reverence. Margaret could feel the energy shifting around her, a current moving through each villager, their hearts racing in unison. "Your faith, my beloved children, has opened the gates of heaven," the figure intoned, its voice echoing like a gentle breeze through ancient trees. "You are not alone. In your darkest hours, remember that I walk beside you." Somehow, those words were not just spoken, they were felt, rippling through the crowd and settling in their hearts like a warm balm. Margaret's mind raced with questions, but one bold thought soared higher than the others. Could this be her chance? Clutching her hands together, she squeezed her eyes shut and prayed fervently for understanding. "Who are you?" someone from the back murmured, their voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. The figure smiled, warmth radiating from its form. "I am that which you seek. I am the Good Shepherd, the light that guides your weary souls." Gasps filled the square, and a swell of murmured awe cascaded around them. Margaret's heart grew lighter. This was more than a moment. This was a declaration, a promise of hope. "Miracles are not just for the chosen few," the light continued. "They bloom for all who dare to believe and to love unconditionally." As the figure spoke, Margaret thought of Daniel, her heart aching with longing. "Will you bring him back to us?" she cried out, her voice breaking through the stillness. "Will my son be healed?" A profound silence enveloped the crowd. The smile of the celestial being seemed tinged with sadness as it replied, "Healing comes in many forms, dear child. It may not unfold as you wish, but remember, every closed door is a miraculous path to a greater journey awaiting." The essence of those words settled inside Margaret like seeds in rich soil, some sprouting hope, others fear. What if healing meant letting go? What if she had to embrace an outcome that wasn't what she envisioned? She trembled at the thought, but also felt an unyielding peace unfurling within her. The figure continued, "You are called not just to witness miracles, but to be a part of them. Your love for Daniel is a radiant light in the dark, a beacon of hope that will guide him home." As if answering a silent prayer, a warm breeze swept through the square, lifting souls and lives, turning doubt into resolve. Margaret gazed at the faces around her, fearful, hopeful, and filled with a spark of something divine. They needed each other. "Gather your strength, my children. The time has come for you to lift one another, to share your burdens and ignite each other's hearts." The golden light began to thicken, enveloping the villagers in a cocoon of warmth and grace. Margaret felt it penetrating her spirit, urging her to rise alongside her neighbors. "Together," she whispered, "we will believe." And as the congregation bowed their heads in unity, the figure dissolved into 1,000 shimmering shards of light that danced around them, mingling with the first stars that sparked in the darkening sky. Yet questions bubbled beneath the surface, swirling within Margaret's heart. Would she have the strength to surrender to a greater journey? Could the community embrace the transformation they so desperately needed? Their journey was beginning anew, but with every new chapter, a question lingered. Would they be ready to accept what was to come? Would they embrace the unexpected paths that opened before them? The stage was now wider, filled with divine mystery, revealing that miracles often arrive cloaked in uncertainty. The night deepened, and the villagers stood still, wrapped in the remnants of celestial glow. The air was thick with hope, yet fragile with uncertainty. Margaret turned, her heart roaming among her neighbors, seeking assurance in their eyes. A connection formed. Their shared questions bound them together in a tapestry of faith. "What do we do now?" A voice broke the silence. A young woman named Eliza, newly married, her brow furrowed with worry. "How do we lift one another?" Margaret opened her mouth to respond, but words danced just out of reach. In that moment, she understood. This was about more than words. It was about actions and commitment. There was a collective calling for each villager to uncover their own light and share it openly. "The Good Shepherd said we are not just witnesses," Margaret spoke softly, her voice trembling with conviction. "We are called to be a part of the miracles blossoming around us." Eliza nodded slowly, eyes sparkling with understanding. "Let us gather our stories," someone chimed in, a kind soul named Arthur, known for his wisdom. "Let us share our burdens and our joys. Each heart holds wisdom meant to be shared." The villagers, emboldened, began to form smaller circles, laughter bubbling over with the initial pangs of vulnerability. Stories floated through the air like whispered prayers. Margaret found herself in a circle with Eliza and Arthur. The warmth of their voices enfolded her, bringing reassurance, easing her fears. "I lost my father last winter," Eliza shared, hands trembling. "I thought it was the end of the world for me, but he taught me to see the beauty in our struggles." She drew a deep breath. "It was through that pain I found my husband and the joy we now share." Tears glistened in her eyes, but were joined by tears of joy from both Arthur and Margaret. Each story unveiled another layer of shared existence, a proof of resilience, a beacon shining through the darkness. As they exchanged stories, a gentle breeze swirled among them, fragrant with the earth and a promise of renewal. Margaret felt it stir hope within her soul, a rapid pulse igniting beneath her ribs. "Together our burdens become lighter," she whispered, her voice a sincere lullaby. "Together they illuminate the path back to us, back to love." The conversations shifted, unveiling a weighty tension that hung like mist around their hearts. "But what if we fail?" one villager offered, voicing the fear that crept through the meeting. "Failure?" said Arthur, his voice steady. "There is no failure in love, only lessons disguised as closed doors." An unearthly warmth clasped at Margaret's spirit as echoes of divine thoughts wrapped around her like a gentle embrace. Her heart ached anew for Daniel, yet clarity pierced that pain. Her love could become a healing balm, not just for him, but for others who suffered too. Our stories entwine and strengthen each other. What if we began to create together? Margaret took a step forward, emboldened. A circle of hope, a tapestry of healing. If we come together, we can shine light on the path toward miracles. Hopeful murmurs rippled through the villagers as faces illuminated by faith reflected her words. Margaret sensed a spark, as if a flame had ignited among them. "Let's gather in the chapel tomorrow," Margaret felt compelled to proclaim. "Together we will lift our voices in praise, share our stories, and kindle the light across our village." As night surrendered to dawn, a tangible excitement filled the air. The villagers dispersed slowly, the warmth of anticipation lingering like the last traces of stars. Yet, as Margaret made her way home, a lingering question danced in her mind. Would their shared light be enough to face the shadows waiting to emerge? Would their united hearts overcome the trials that loomed on the horizon? Tomorrow beckoned with an unvoiced promise, waiting patiently for them to discover the miracles hidden in their journey. Morning light unveiled a new day, casting golden rays that spilled artfully across the village. As Margaret prepared for the gathering, her heart fluttered with sacred anticipation. The chapel stood in its humble stature, a beacon of hope among the whispers of the swaying trees and the gentle laughter of the brook nearby. Margaret entered the chapel, filled with a sense of belonging. The wooden pews, scratched and worn, held the echoes of countless prayers, of lives intertwined through the years. She felt the air thick with possibility, woven through each crevice of the space. One by one, the villagers trickled in, their faces bright and eyes shimmering with expectation. Eliza was among the first, her step lighter than before. Arthur followed, a wise smile gracing his lips. The energy in the room was different now, charged with the weight of stories yet to be shared. "Welcome," Margaret called, her voice a warm embrace. "Today we gather not just in the walls of this chapel, but in the very core of our hearts. Together, we shall weave our stories into a vibrant tapestry of love and healing. The villagers settled in, facing one another, and the sacred space filled with an air of reverence. Margaret took a deep breath, her spirit alive with an unyielding desire to connect. "Let each word be a little light," she said, filling the dark corners of our fears. Eliza was the first to rise, her vulnerability a gift. "As I grieved, I saw how each tear forged connections," she began, her voice trembling yet steady. "Tears of sorrow transformed into laughter with my husband, reminding me that love can be birthed from pain." Art murmurs flowed through the group. "Indeed, our trials are threads that bind us in unexpected ways," Arthur added, his voice like a calming stream. "Each whisper of fear can refine our purpose." The sharing continued, each story deepening collective understanding. Laughter danced alongside tears as hearts sprung open to reveal hidden wounds. Margaret felt a warmth envelop her, filling her with a sense of belonging and purpose. But a shadow lingered amidst the glow. "What if we don't have enough light?" a timid voice questioned from the back. The murmur of concern rippled through the crowd. "Even the smallest candle can pierce the deepest darkness," came Arthur's reassuring reply. His voice flowed like a soothing balm over worry-laden hearts. "Let us not underestimate the power of our shared light." Margaret's soul soared at those words, each one stirring faith within her. "Indeed," she proclaimed, her spirit aflame with the energy of conviction. "A single spark can ignite a fire that warms us all." As the gathering deepened, moments of sacred silence punctuated their exchanges. They closed their eyes and held hands, breathing in unity. The air thickened with divine presence, a gentle reminder of who they were becoming together. Stepping back, Margaret reflected silently. A thought took root in her heart. What if we transformed this chapel into a sanctuary? A place not only for worship, but also for healing, a hub of love shared among all. Excited murmurs filled the air again. This was not just a gathering, it was the beginning of a pilgrimage toward a collective calling. They would redefine community together. Yet, as their plans blossomed, the echoing distance murmured of impending challenges. Would they remain steadfast when shadows threatened to slip back into their lives? Could their newfound light stand against what loomed on the horizon? With renewed determination, Margaret looked at her neighbors, her family, and felt a surge of strength. They were bound together now, not merely by stories, but by a sacred promise of light. Tomorrow held the potential for miracles unseen, paths yet to be illuminated by their combined faith. What awaited them beyond the boundaries of their fears? What trials would truly test the bonds of their belief? She could not yet fathom the answers, but she felt them inching closer. As the sun rose higher in the sky, its bright presence filled the chapel with a warm glow that felt like a divine embrace. Margaret stood at the front, heart racing, watching the faces of her friends. Each one a reflection of hopes and dreams intertwined. She could see the flicker of determination in their eyes, a shared resolve that ignited the energy in the room. "Let's begin our journey," Margaret suggested, her voice steady with newfound purpose. "Let us dream together about how this sanctuary can serve our village, and let's not shy away from the challenges we sense on the horizon." Arthur nodded, his expression thoughtful. Change often walks hand in hand with trials, but if we lean into faith, our fears can become our greatest teachers. His words resonated, sending ripples of courage through the congregation. Eliza piped up, her voice filled with excitement. "We can turn this space into a community garden, a place for gathering and sharing, for healing. Imagine the joy we can cultivate here." The vision blossomed as others joined in. Ideas flowed, weaving tales of workshops, shared meals, and healing circles, each suggestion adding layers to the tapestry they were creating. But amidst the buoyant ideas, the same question lingered beneath the surface. What lay beyond their aspirations? What if they encountered relentless obstacles that dimmed their spirits? Margaret felt her heart tremble at the thought. Even the strongest resolve can falter, she admitted, voice low but filled with conviction. But we must remind ourselves of the light within us. We need each other's faith to shine through the darkness. Tension hung in the air, but it was a tangible kind of tension, the anticipation of something sacred. They held their breath, almost as if waiting for a promise to unfurl. Suddenly, a gentle wind swept through the chapel, fluttering the pages of an old hymn book. It felt like an unseen presence drifting among them, whispering secrets of courage and wisdom. They paused, their eyes wide, sensing the sacredness that swirled around them. Margaret breathed deep. "Let us pray for guidance," she implored, gathering hands once more, the warmth of their connection undeniable. "Let us ask for insight into the paths we need to walk." Voices rose slowly, a beautiful symphony of words sent heavenward. Each prayer was a thread binding their spirits, a collective surrender to a higher purpose. In that moment, a deep peace washed over Margaret. She felt as if they were cradled by divine arms, a reminder that they were never alone in their struggles. After the prayers ended, a deep stillness enveloped the room, thick with anticipation. Just then, a young boy, Samuel, timidly approached the front. "I've been watching and listening," he said, eyes shining with innocence. "Can't we just trust that God has our backs, that He's always there no matter what we face?" Those simple words struck like a bell resonating through the chapel. It was a profound reminder that even the wisest among them could learn from a child. Laughter broke the tension, and tears glimmered in eyes that had been scared, but now softened with vulnerability. "Yes," Margaret affirmed, joy sparkling in her heart. "Let's embrace that faith. Let's carry Samuel's words with us as we move forward." The room erupted into shared affirmations, each soul rekindling the light of hope within. The weight of uncertainty began to lift. Margaret saw that they were forging unity in their resolved hearts, ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead. Yet, deep within her spirit, curiosity stirred. What paths would be laid before them? How could they translate their faith into action amidst the tests they would soon face? Would every closed door bring them closer to the miraculous unfolding of their dreams? Underneath the rising resolve, the answers danced just out of reach, beckoning her to step into the unknown. The sun continued its ascent, casting vibrant light that illuminated every corner of the chapel. Margaret looked around at her friends. Their faces, once clouded with doubt, now radiated the warmth of belief. They were no longer just a group of individuals. Together, they had become a tapestry of hope, stitched with threads of prayer and unwavering faith. Each heart beat in rhythm, a collective pulse of determination. "How about we brainstorm the first step?" Margaret proposed, the idea sparking a ripple of energy through the room. "We need a plan to set this vision into motion." Arthur leaned forward, eyes bright with enthusiasm. "Let's designate roles based on our strengths. I can help with the community meetings. People will want to know about our ideas." "That's a start," Eliza chimed in. "We could host an open house, invite everyone to discuss their thoughts. Let the villagers' ideas flow too. They are part of this journey." As they built upon each other's thoughts, Margaret felt a surge of excitement. But with this joy came a whisper of caution in her heart. What if their plans were met with indifference? What if the community wasn't ready for such change? It was hard not to imagine the closed doors that could loom over them. But then she remembered Samuel's words. Trusting God felt like walking a tightrope over uncertainty, but they had each other to lean on. "Let's embrace every hindrance as an opportunity for growth," she encouraged. "What if each challenge can turn into something beautiful?" Once again, they joined hands, forming a chain of devotion. Together they prayed, lifting their hopes up as fragrant offerings, asking for strength to face the challenges ahead. Each prayer wove that invisible thread, tightening the bond of their fellowship like a delicate yet sturdy fabric. As they prayed, Margaret felt a cool breeze brush her cheek, carrying with it a sense of clarity. Memories of Scripture danced in her mind, reminding her of countless stories where faith in action led to transformation. The walls of difficulty didn't simply block, they redirected towards greater paths, miracles waiting to unfold. When the prayers fell silent, Margaret opened her eyes, taking in the circle around her. Bewildered eyes shone with a spark of something, the determination to make a difference. She couldn't help but smile, feeling buoyed by their collective energy. "I believe that divine wisdom often reveals itself in our challenges," she said, feeling emboldened. "If we face any closed doors, let's use them as guiding lights to find the open ones God has waiting for us." Just then, the chapel door creaked open, and in walked Mrs. Hargrove, the elderly widow from down the street. She had been listening from outside, curiosity pulling her into the warm light of the gathering. "I overheard your discussions," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I feel the Spirit moving in you all. May I share something?" With respectful nods, the group encouraged her to speak. She continued, "Long ago, I held a gathering similar to this. It transformed our community, but not without hardship. We faced backlash, even despair. Yet each setback was God's way of reshaping us for something greater. You must trust in the road ahead." Margaret listened, her heart swelling with gratitude for this unexpected validation. There was power in shared experiences, she realized. It was as though Mrs. Hargrove's story was a divine thread stitching together their own journey. "Thank you, Mrs. Hargrove," Margaret said softly. "Your wisdom is a reminder that faith isn't barren of trials, it flourishes through them." A powerful wave of agreement swept through the room, voices rising in affirmation again. But as hope intertwined with practical planning, Margaret felt a flicker of anxiety, a whisper of doubt. Was there more than they knew? What unseen forces might challenge them? With every word shared, they charted paths further into the unknown. Each promise of their community becoming a garden of hope took root. Yet in that fertile soil of determination, faith, the seeds of uncertainty lingered, like shadows at dusk. What would their journey reveal? Would their trust transform into testimonies? And when faced with the first formidable test, would their emerging faith stand strong amidst the winds of change? The mystery of tomorrow danced just beyond their grasp. The following week dawned, bright and filled with promise. The chapel hummed with anticipation as Margaret and her friends gathered once more to solidify their plans. Sipping cups of tea, they surrounded the worn wooden table, its surface littered with colorful paper, pencils, and hearts full of dreams. "Today, we will invite the community," Eliza declared, eyes shining like the sun. "Our open house will be the first step towards openness, towards unity." Margaret nodded, feeling a thrilling rush of purpose. Each person at the table carried a piece of the puzzle. "Let's set a date," she suggested, feeling the heat of excitement fill the air. "And make sure to spread the word far and wide." The room buzzed with ideas. Arthur proposed flyers and neighborhood visits, while Sarah suggested social media as a means to reach younger villagers. The chatter was so lively, it felt as if the Spirit was dancing among them, urging them forward. Yet, despite the excitement, a current of concern tugged at Margaret's heart. She glanced at Arthur, whose face was now scrunched in thought. "What if people don't come?" His voice was quieter, the enthusiasm of earlier dimming just a notch. "What if they don't care?" A hush fell over the room. It was a heavy silence, pregnant with worry. Margaret felt a familiar chill, the cold breath of doubt. They had dreamed so vividly, dared to step into the light, but what if that light faltered? Then a soft voice broke through the air. It was Mrs. Hargrove again, her presence a steady anchor in their midst. "Sweet child," she began, her hand reaching out to touch Margaret's arm gently. "Every seed takes time to grow. Faith is often born in the soil of uncertainty. It isn't about numbers, it's about hearts." Margaret felt the warmth of Mrs. Hargrove's words seep into her spirit. "You're right," she replied, looking around at her friends, feeling the hand of the Almighty guiding them. "Our success isn't measured by attendance, but by intention. If we are faithful, He will draw the hearts that need this community." With renewed vigor, they pressed on. They crafted inviting speeches, organized refreshments, planned engaging activities. And with each passing email, text, or heads up, a ripple of excitement emerged among the villagers, weaving connections they had never imagined. Days turned into nights, and soon the date approached, charged with a mix of energy and trepidation. The open house was set for Saturday, and as Friday rolled in, clouds gathered overhead like shadows preparing to descend. Sitting together in the chapel, Margaret felt an overwhelming urge to pray for clarity. "Let's invite the Spirit into this moment," she suggested, sensing a deep yearning within herself. Hands clasped, they lifted their hearts in unity, beseeching God for guidance and peace, readying themselves for whatever might come. As they prayed, Margaret's heart swayed between faith and fear, each word releasing a mix of hope and anxiety. Suddenly, the chapel felt lighter. She opened her eyes to catch a glimpse of sunlight cutting through the gloom outside, reflecting off the stained glass and igniting a blaze of color within their space. "Look!" Arthur exclaimed, pointing outside. "Is that a sign?" "Could be," Margaret murmured, both curious and cautious. "Or it might just be a trick of the light." And then, as if the heavens were answering their prayer, the door creaked open, and a couple of villagers appeared at the threshold. The first hesitant steps morphed into others, until the chapel filled with familiar faces, some uncertain, others beaming with curiosity. Margaret's heart raced. "They're here! It's really happening!" But just as she felt joy surge within, she sensed that same old whisper of doubt creeping in. Was this start just a glimmer, or was there more to come? The challenges ahead loomed like clouds on the horizon, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that each one held its own beauty, the promise of a deeper relationship with God and community, should they dare to trust. As laughter mingled with chatter, a new question began to unfurl in the depths of Margaret's heart. What if this was just the beginning of an unfolding story, a destiny resting on the horizon, one that could change everything? Would their faith withstand the storm that was coming next? As the chapel filled with the soft murmur of greetings and hesitant smiles, Margaret felt her heart swell with an indescribable mix of gratitude and anxiety. There they were, faces from her community, faces that had remained shadows in her memories until today. Each person who stepped inside carried a small part of their story, a thread woven into the greater tapestry of their village life. "Welcome, everyone! We're excited to share this space with you today." Eliza's voice rang out, bright and full of warmth, as she moved to greet the guests at the door. Margaret watched as her friend's charisma wrapped around newcomers, unfolding like petals of a flower, inviting them to bloom in this moment of connection. Yet as voices rose in joyful chatter, a flicker of fear snaked up Margaret's spine. She stole a glance at Arthur, who stood slightly behind her. His brow furrowed, betraying the same anxiety that danced through her. What if this openness brought discomfort? What if unspoken conflicts bubbled to the surface in the light of their gathering? Would they be able to shoulder the weight of underlying tensions for the sake of unity? "Breathe, Margaret," she whispered softly to herself, struggling to ground her thoughts. Faith beckoned her forward, as if reminding her that every open door could also lead to unexpected revelations. She recalled Mrs. Hargrove's words, Faith grows in the soil of uncertainty. "Come, let us discover together," she urged, as she stepped into the throng, each footstep fueled by a mixture of exhilaration and surrender to the unfolding path God had set before them. The warmth embraced her, and she felt welcomed, though uncertainty lingered like a distant storm. The afternoon flowed like a gentle stream, filled with laughter and shared stories. It wasn't long before Margaret found herself leading a small group to one of the fellowship rooms, where a soft glow from the hanging lanterns cast warm pools of light on their faces. "Let's take a moment to reflect on what this community means to us," she suggested. "What do we hope to nurture here?" Answers flowed freely, filled with sincerity and aspiration. "Connection," Sarah offered softly, her eyes thoughtful. "Support," another echoed. The words pooled together, glistening with promise. As they shared, Margaret felt a gentle stirring, a sense that they were something greater than a mere gathering. With every heartfelt word, each revelation felt like seeds being sown in fertile ground. She paused, taking the moment in, feeling God's presence quietly wrap around them in an embrace. "Let's pray together," she suggested, her voice trembling with holy anticipation. The group held hands, hearts aligned in purpose. As they prayed, an unexpected hush enveloped the room, settling like a soft blanket. Margaret felt a wave of peace wash over her, washing away the remnants of doubt. A whisper echoed in her soul, "Trust the unfolding." Once prayer ended, a feeling of euphoria surged through the group. They lingered in the moment, buoyed by the realization that faith had fostered them into a family. But then a soft knock interrupted their contemplation. The door creaked open, revealing Mrs. Hargrove standing there, her smile shining bright amidst the shadows. "I felt drawn to come and see how things were going," she said, her presence bringing an immediate sense of comfort. But behind her, two uninvited figures loomed, their faces etched with hesitations. Margaret's pulse quickened. Who were they, and what disturbance did they bring? "Is this a bad time?" the taller figure queried, uncertainty in his eyes. Margaret sensed a weight in his voice. Her heart raced, suddenly realizing that sometimes divine moments come wrapped in uncomfortable packages. "No," she replied, gathering courage. "You're most welcome. Please join us. We're in this together, and we want your story to be part of ours." As they stepped across the threshold, drawing in with them the fresh air of change, Margaret couldn't shake the feeling that this was just another chapter, a prelude to something far greater. What had begun as a simple open house threatened to transform into something monumental. But the path ahead remained cloaked in mystery, each new face a whisper of untold stories. Would they find unity in diversity, or would strife cloud the blooming hope? Only time would tell what divine wisdom awaited them through every closed door. Would their hearts remain open to the unexpected miracles waiting on the other side? The sun sank lower as the gathering swelled, anticipation weaving through the room like an unseen current. Margaret felt a surge of energy coursing through her, sparked by the fresh faces and unspoken hopes. She glanced at the newcomers who hesitated at the doorway, sensing they carried their burdens. Yet they stepped into the light, into this moment crafted by faith. "Thank you for joining us," Margaret said, her voice ringing with sincerity. "We're sharing stories of healing and connection. You're welcomed here." The newcomers' faces softened, and they settled around the circle, drawing smiles and validating their place within this tapestry. Margaret realized this was not merely a gathering anymore. It was a shared journey towards something miraculous. Mrs. Hargrove moved among the group, her wisdom a steady beacon. "Welcome, dear ones. We are here to support one another. When we talk of our struggles, we illuminate a path for others." The phrase hung in the air, igniting sparks of encouragement. The tension caused by doubt began to shed like leaves in autumn, replaced by the vibrant colors of a newfound community. Eliza stood up. "I'd like to contribute something," she said, her heart practically shining through every word. "Why don't we each take a moment to share what we hope to create together in this place? It could be the seed that our community needs." The suggestion rippled through the group, fueled by eager nods. Margaret beamed, recognizing the unity building. One by one, her friends poured out their dreams, the yearning for comfort, support through grief, laughter brightening the shadows, vibrant gatherings that would bridge the gaps between old conflicts. "I want to create a safe space for children," young Samuel added, his clear eyes reflecting the ardor of youth. "A place where they can grow and play, just like how I did." A gentle warmth seeped into the air, enveloping them as they listened and shared, the fabric of their heartstrings weaving tighter with every story, transforming apprehension into powerful affirmations, building faith that shone brightly, hopeful under the night sky. Then, from among the crowd, a voice echoed forth, a voice that sliced through the spirit of hope. "Why should we change?" A man named Edward, his brow deeply furrowed with years of hardship. "The village already abandoned those of us who needed it most. Change only brings turmoil." Margaret felt the weight of his words settle heavily in the room. Silence cloaked the crowd. Doubt had slipped in like a silent intruder, but Margaret sensed this was part of their shared journey, a challenge they needed to navigate together. "Every story matters," she replied gently, her heart racing towards vulnerability. "Sometimes the most difficult changes invite the greatest miracles. If we stay in our comfort zones, we will never witness the divine. What if we embrace the journey as a holistic community? We can build a bridge back to one another." There was a moment of stillness, pregnant with uncertainty, before Eliza, emboldened, drew strength from Margaret's words. "Our dreams don't erase the past, Edward. They acknowledge it and grow from it. We might face storms, but together we can face anything." More voices joined the wave of encouragement, stories mingling with hope, weaving seams of resilience stitched within the gathering. Margaret felt faith blossom within each heart, allowing them to rise above the waves of fear. "I can share my story," said the previous newcomer, Emily, her voice trembling. "I lost my family when the storms hit last summer. But I found new friends, and now I see a community emerging here. If you can stand together, you can change anything." Hope filled the room again like a fresh breeze, as the stories tangled and wove into bold wishes. A new chapter written, ready to be lived out. Each face illuminated as they realized they could draw strength from each other's vulnerability. "I can share my story," said the previous newcomer, Emily, her voice trembling. "I lost my family when the storms hit last summer. But I found new friends, and now I see a community emerging here. If you can stand together, you can change anything." Hope filled the room again like a fresh breeze, as the stories tangled and wove into bold wishes. A new chapter written, ready to be lived out. Each face illuminated as they realized they could draw strength from each other's vulnerability. As their circle deepened, Margaret turned to the chapel's glowing windows, warm light spilling through the colors, igniting a feeling that transcended their moment. "Let's pray together for clarity," she proposed, a spark lighting behind her eyes. "Let us ask for guidance in walking through each tight space and shared work. May we become agents of love, healing in our brokenness." And with that, they clasped hands, breathing in unity. Each prayer spilled forth, words rising like smoke into the air, lifting burdens, laying them before God. Margaret felt a warmth enclose them, like a soft blanket wrapping around cold souls to anchor them into divine love. "Imagine," she breathed softly, "if we each committed to being a light for one another. Healing is born in community, and every closed door is a miraculous path we are learning to navigate." The prayer encased them like a divine light, glowing with promise, igniting hearts and binding souls. In that sacred moment, Margaret envisioned not just healing for her own son Daniel, but for her entire village. Together they could shine brighter than before, united in exploration of divine wisdom. As they gradually unwrapped their hands, Margaret knew this was only a beginning. They had embraced their fears, shared deep desires, and now had woven hope into the root of their village's journey. Yet the sense of expectation hung thick in the air, a beautiful ambiguity cloaked in divine foreboding. Would they weather the storm? Could they transform every shadow into light? Now joy danced at the forefront, pushing darkness aside. Her heart sparked with belief. Every moment leading here, every closed door revealing paths to the miraculous journey ahead. This was just the beginning. Margaret straightened to address the village gathered before her, their entwined fates shimmering with possibility. Let's step boldly into the unknown together. Trust the process. Embrace the light of God within us. Miracles await us. And as the words left her lips, a collective pulse thumped through the chapel, a steady belief blossoming, vibrating with divine readiness. They were free now, unafraid to shine, ready to open every closed door the future held. This was their time, their journey manifested, their faith resounding across the heavens. Before she knew it, these moments would nestle deep within each heart, blossoming into testimonies of strength, resilience, and enduring love. Just as Mrs. Hargrove said, the journey does not end, but begins anew at each turn. As the sun dipped below the horizon, that warm glow refracted through their hearts, united forever in a choice of faith. They were pilgrims on a sacred road, ready, willing, and open to embrace a divine journey unfurling before them. Now the possibilities stretched vast and unwritten, waiting only for their call to action, their answer to the question of the faithful. What could they become together? In that moment, Margaret realized they were not only shaping their village, but also unveiling the power of faith to move mountains. And yes, they were ready to illuminate every step of the way, together. You need to subscribe now to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories of faith. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover these powerful messages. Comment below with your reactions and testimonies about how faith has manifested in your life. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this divine manifestation. This is the moment to show your support, and together we will lift each other higher through the power of faith.